The next couple of days, the WNBA players are going to decide if they want to go on strike. And if they decide to go on strike, apparently that could be the end of the WNBA. The WNBA cannot come back from this.
So people thought Angel Reese was insane last year when she said, yeah, CBA's coming up. We deserve more. Because I'm here, and if y'all don't give us what we want, we sitting out. What are you, crazy? Sit out and crush all the momentum from Caitlin Clark? Well, guess what? Just this week, W players voted yes on a strike. Not on strike yet, but it's official.
The tape reveals something unsettling. Headlines paint one picture, while the timing tells a completely different story. That disconnect speaks volumes. What if all that celebration wasn't celebrating success at all, but masking a choice that was already locked in? The cheering continued, but the numbers went sideways, and then everything just went dark. Stick around because this ending only clicks when you realize it was orchestrated way before anyone would admit it.
24 hours, the WNBA could be dead. Not dead like, oh, the ratings are down dead. I'm talking about the league that just had the most successful season in its history. The league that finally got mainstream attention. The league that everybody's been waiting 28 years to see take off. That league might literally cease to exist. And the craziest part, the players are the ones that are about to pull the trigger. Because right now, as I'm recording this, WNBA players are literally 1 day away from potentially going on strike.
This should have been the breakthrough moment, the victory tour, the chapter everyone would reference saying, look, we finally cracked the code. Instead, it's like watching a celebration where the party's still going, the energy's still high, but someone's quietly cleaning up in the background. And nobody's brave enough to ask what's really happening.
This was 98% yes.
You're looking at roughly 98 players in the mix here.
On the same page, but if this happens, it could be the end of the WNBA as we know it. Because other leagues are popping up saying, hey, you don't like the W? Come play here. We'll pay you more.
Oh, I would let them. If I was the WNBA, I would let any players that wanted to go play in this other league play in that league. Because if we couldn't make money as the WNBA, literally the WNBA, you're going to take the same players that we had and you're going to find a way to make money. I would watch and see what they do. And if it does work out, I would use their business model and reopen it.
Because in just days, this league won't be dealing with some minor disagreement or symbolic gesture of solidarity. They're staring down the kind of choice that destroys leagues entirely. A complete work stoppage. Not some token gesture or brief timeout, but the type that kills all forward progress, shatters fan loyalty, and hands every competitor with a business plan. The exact opportunity they've been waiting for.
Bro, this is getting crazy, and these people are actually delusional. I made a video a couple of days ago talking about the WNBA, and 97% of the WNBA players said that they were going to go on strike if they weren't paid what they were owed. Now, the average amount that a WNBA player makes is like $120,000 a year, which I think is good for a league that doesn't make any money. But the WNBA came to the table and said, okay, for you guys to play another season, we're willing to pay you, on average, the new wage would be $540,000.
What's truly terrifying isn't how split everyone seems, but how aligned they actually are. When 98% of people agree on something this drastic, that's not solidarity. That's a timer counting down. None of this appeared overnight, even though everyone's acting completely blindsided.
So what are the WNBA stars actually fighting about? Well, it's simple. They're only fighting about money. And that's a way to simplify everything, but it's way more complicated than that. See, it's not just about how much the players get paid, it's about how they get paid. And this is where things get really interesting. Right now, WNBA players get about 9 to 10% of league revenue. The league's supermax salary in 2025 was $249,244. The average salary was $120,000. The minimum was just $66,000.
Red flags were flying everywhere, like smoke detectors, going off while someone taped a note, saying everything's fine, we're actually winning over the alarm. 12 months back, when certain players suggested walking away might be an option, the response was nervous laughter, mixed with pure disbelief. Walk away right now when the league's experiencing the biggest wave of mainstream attention in its history? That sounded like suggesting you unplug someone's life support right when they finally open their eyes. Yet here we sit facing exactly what everyone swore could never happen. The twist is almost beautiful in its cruelty. The league finally achieved what it had been hunting for decades. Real mainstream coverage, sold-out venues, legitimate television ratings, actual cultural impact, and right when it all materialized, the foundation started falling apart. The explanation isn't rocket science. Regardless of how many inspiring quotes end up on merchandise, this comes down to money, timing, and expectations smashing into each other at the absolute worst moment. One athlete entered this league and shifted the entire atmosphere. Contests that used to pass by unnoticed suddenly became must-see events. Viewership didn't just climb, it exploded. Regular season games that previously struggled to find modest audiences suddenly resembled primetime entertainment. Even games she wasn't part of caught some kind of contact high the league couldn't figure out how to handle. Championship games that once flew under the radar suddenly generated numbers that made people stop pretending nothing had shifted.
That's all I have in me today. We have been covering this WNBA CBA stuff from the beginning, and it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. It never feels like we are getting anywhere. I never feel like I have good updates for you guys, and I'm getting tired of the fact that I also feel like every time I sit down, I'm complaining about something, and that's just not my personality. I'm not going to continue to sit here and complain about something or rant about something or be angry about something and not be able to make a change in something.
That's exactly where the tension began, because acknowledging that one athlete fundamentally changed the league's financial reality made every other conversation more complicated. It put uncomfortable calculations right on the table, and math doesn't negotiate with emotions, storylines, or whoever's dominating social media feeds. It just stares back, demanding to know why the revenue explosion didn't turn into actual profit. The timing looked perfect from the outside. A fresh media rights agreement landed precisely when interest peaked. Expansion money poured in, with new franchises paying astronomical fees just for permission to join. From any external view, it appeared the league had finally reached the promised land. From inside, the books painted a completely different picture. Because here's what nobody wants to acknowledge publicly. The league continues bleeding money, not small amounts but serious money. And somehow, during the exact year when attention skyrocketed, losses managed to reach record highs. That seems impossible until you understand that spending accelerated just as quickly as income, sometimes even faster, and frequently in directions that had zero connection to audience growth. The focus quietly moved from how do we stabilize this success to how do we upgrade our lifestyle.
The unrivaled league and the ratings are an embarrassment. They're a statement about how little interest there actually is in women's basketball beyond Caitlin Clark. The fact that they can't reach a CBA agreement and be confident that there's actually going to be a 2026 season of the WNBA, because these idiots, Angel Reese and the rest, are like, oh man, if y'all not paying us $1 million, $2 million a season, we're not playing. They've offered these idiots.
All of a sudden, this league stopped being just about basketball and became about appearances, comfort, and projecting an image of something that hadn't yet proven it could survive financially. Private jets became the ultimate symbol, not because travel safety doesn't matter, but because of what they actually represent. A league that's never generated profit, demanding one of the most expensive luxuries in professional athletics. Isn't negotiation tactics. It's a breaking point. Private aircraft sound impressive until you calculate the reality. One flight out, one flight back, multiplied by every team, every staff member, across an entire season. The expense grows into something that could single-handedly fund significant salary bumps. You can almost hear the spreadsheets crying as they get completely ignored. The irony is that commercial flying, inconvenient as it might be, could actually strengthen the connection between players and the fans they absolutely need to retain. Public visibility builds loyalty. Visibility creates intrigue and mystery. Isn't always helpful when you're battling for cultural relevance. This is where salary conversations get completely twisted. The figures are legitimate and they're not insignificant. Average compensation has climbed into ranges most people would gladly accept for doing something they're passionate about for half the year. Minimum salaries could definitely improve, but they're not poverty wages. The issue isn't that athletes want more. The issue is the sequence of demand.
These WNBA players said that that's still not enough, and if you don't pay us, there's a rival league that we're going to get paid out to go to, and they're going to compete with you directly. Now, the numbers just came out for this supposed rival league, really the only thing that gave them even an inkling of leverage in this negotiation. Their numbers just came out, and it turns out they lost 65% of their viewership in the year of 2025. So now they just have nowhere to go. 65% drop, WNBA players begging for old.
A work stoppage doesn't shrink your income. It eliminates it completely. Zero isn't negotiating power. Zero is jumping off a cliff. While the biggest stars can afford to stand at that edge and strike poses, the middle-tier players absolutely cannot. Not because finding middle ground is impossible, but because bitterness entered the negotiations. Once that happens, rational thinking exits through the back. Positions hardened, stances became concrete. What should have been give and take turned into a staring match where both sides treated any flexibility as defeat. The league offered figures that would have seemed fantasy just a few years earlier. Enormous increases across every level, historic jumps and averages. A future that, while not perfect, looked dramatically better than what came before. The reaction wasn't careful optimism. It was fury. That's when things shifted from ambitious to genuinely dangerous. Negotiations should conclude with both sides somewhat unhappy. That's how you know neither party got everything they wanted. When one side responds to a massively improved proposal like it's an insult, the message stops being about equity. It becomes about power. The heart of this standoff is revenue sharing, a concept that sounds reasonable until you examine the details. Revenue sharing means dividing income, not profit. It means connecting player compensation to the league's financial ups and downs. That functions in leagues that consistently make money.
I think there's a miss over there at the WNBA with a big shakeup on the horizon. And from the looks of it, the women over there are on the verge of losing absolutely everything due to pure arrogance, if not ego. And it's sort of like within the modern dating marketplace today, some of these women out here wildly overestimating who they are or the value that they are actually providing to a man. All right. So over the past several years, it's been one name and one name only that has put in the WNBA on its back, and that name is Caitlin Clark.
It creates serious problems in leagues that have survived on subsidies and hope. When you demand the benefits, you also accept the risks. Debt doesn't vanish because the spotlight finally arrived. All those postponed choices are coming due simultaneously, demanding answers. Nobody's rehearsed. The harshest reality is that not everyone faces equal risk. The superstars will survive. They have sponsorship deals, visibility, and alternatives. If the league goes dark, they'll adapt, make guest appearances, collect payment elsewhere, and ride it out. The typical player doesn't have those options. They become casualties in a battle fought with moral rhetoric and financial consequences. History offers no comfort here. Sports leagues don't recover easily from work stoppages, especially when they're still fighting for cultural space. One strike, one lost season, and fans don't just wait patiently around. They find other things. They discover other leagues, other stories, other heroes. Baseball discovered this brutally in the 90s and never completely reclaimed its cultural dominance. That was baseball, a true giant. The WNBA doesn't have that room for mistakes.
Share with you guys the most recent letter that was issued from the WNBPA. At midnight, the 2020 WNBA collective bargaining agreement will expire. Despite demonstrating our willingness to compromise in order to get a deal done, the WNBA and its teams have failed to meet us at the table with the same spirit and seriousness. Instead, they've remained committed to undervaluing player contributions, dismissing player concerns, and running out the clock. Today's display of an inflatable rat, a universal symbol of labor protest outside of the NBA store, calls attention to how the league and its teams have handled these negotiations.
While all this chaos unfolds, competing leagues are positioning themselves like hungry startups at a networking event. With free refreshments, they offer freedom, revenue sharing, and clean slates. They recruit talent quickly, understanding that headlines matter more than long-term viability. In the beginning, the reality is that empty venues don't lie. Attention isn't automatic just because skilled players show up. Infrastructure matters. Legacy matters. Momentum matters. Splitting the talent pool doesn't elevate women's basketball. It fractures it. Fans don't want research projects where they need to determine which league matters this week. They want simplicity. They want meaning. They want something that feels solid enough to justify their emotional investment. Confusion doesn't drive season ticket sales. This is why the whole situation feels less like standard negotiations and more like a dangerous game of chicken at full speed. One direction leads to uncomfortable compromises, steady progress in a future that isn't glamorous but sustainable. The other direction leads to short-term validation and long-term disaster. Success finally arrived, and now there's talk of destroying it to make a statement. History shows that statements provide little comfort when the league disappears, so the question hangs there heavy and unresolved. Is this really about justice, or is it about confusing momentum with permanence? Is this a courageous stand for tomorrow, or the quickest route to erasing it? Because leagues don't collapse when nobody pays attention. They collapse when everyone pays attention at exactly the wrong moment.
It's early. It's too early for this, chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you agree. I think if the WNBA let them titties fly and put an 8-foot rim so women could straight, you know what I'm saying? Titties just straight flopping. More people would watch, dude. I would watch a topless NBA with an 8-foot rim. Women just straight, yeah. Female Vince Carter's just double through the leg, just yeah. Like most of these women are 6'5" anyways. You just put your hand up and it's a dunk. I don't know why they think that we should pay them more when nobody watches this sport, dude.
If this truly becomes the final chapter, it won't be remembered as an unexpected crash. It'll be remembered as the moment when success finally showed up, expectations went through the roof, and patience quietly walked away first. What makes this entire mess even more bizarre is how certain everyone sounds while standing on such unstable ground. There's this floating assumption that if the league takes a break, the audience will just sit there waiting. Like fans are hitting refresh and holding their breath out of pure loyalty. That's completely wrong about how modern sports attention operates. Attention is merciless. It disappears instantly and never looks back. One missing season doesn't register as a timeout to fans. It registers as a cancellation. The tragic part is the league finally possessed leverage that didn't require ultimatums. Television ratings were climbing, merchandise was selling, expansion interest was genuine. The brilliant move would have been securing stability, demonstrating profitability, then renegotiating from unquestionable strength. Instead, everything's being risked on the assumption that momentum is permanent. Momentum is actually the most fragile thing because it depends on people caring tomorrow exactly as much as they care right now. What disappears in all this chaos is that growth periods are naturally unstable. Every successful league survived an awkward phase where budgets were tight, benefits were basic, and patience was required. Jumping over that phase doesn't accelerate success. It typically destroys the foundation before it's solid. You can't construct a skyscraper on concrete that hasn't cured yet.
Reese been too busy being a pop icon, I guess, showing them cheeks off on her Instagram. Nevertheless, what we're here today to do is to analyze the arrogance and also the delusion within the comparison of the NBA or the expectations of men, right? And also to do a deep dive into the misunderstanding of business. So this is going to be an interesting conversation, one of which I intend to have a lot.
Meanwhile, these alternative leagues lurking in the background aren't heroes or villains. They're companies chasing an opening. They promise everything, because promises cost nothing at startup. What they can't promise is staying power, visibility, or cultural significance. History overflows with leagues that launched loud and died quiet, leaving players scrambling and fans wondering what actually mattered. If this strike materializes, the aftermath won't be theatrical like people imagine. There won't be explosions or immediate collapse, just quiet, empty schedules vanishing. Conversations, momentum bleeding away week after week, until the return feels theoretical, rather than certain. That's how leagues die nowadays. Not in anger, but in indifference. By the time everyone realizes the leverage evaporated, it's too late to rebuild it. You can't manufacture genuine interest twice. You get one window when culture pays attention, and this was that window. That's what makes watching this so painful. Not because players want more, but because the timing couldn't be more destructive. When everything's said and done, this isn't about choosing between respect and money. It's about choosing between long-term survival and short-term theater. One path requires swallowing frustration and thinking strategically. The other feels empowering now and devastating later. If this league really does shut down even temporarily, the explanation won't be complex. It'll be remembered as the moment when growth got confused with permanence and leverage got confused with invincibility. Not because nobody cared, but because everyone assumed caring would be sufficient. That assumption has destroyed more leagues than any shortage of talent ever had.